Hey bag ladies and bag dudes, I'm Sara Lawson from So Sweetness. Thanks so much for joining me for Ask Sara, my weekly Q&A chat. Hey everyone, thanks so much for joining me tonight. I'm so happy that you're here with me over on Facebook and YouTube. I saw a lot of questions coming in before we started the live chat, so thanks so much for joining me tonight. So while we're waiting for everyone else to jump on in on the chat, I stopped at my local quilt shop today to pick up this bag sample. I'm teaching the Sloan Travel bag at the end of the week for a workshop for a quilt guild, and so I wanted to have this bag handy so that I could show it during the workshop. So I made this bag using an older Tim Holtz fabric with matte prints on it and beige coordinating solid straps. The bag's got side pockets with flaps and a recessed zipper on the top. So I love using this bag personally for traveling on an airplane. The bag is huge, so it fits a lot of stuff, and it also slides under the seat in front of me. I might have to squish it a little bit on the top corners, but it definitely does fit. So I love taking this bag along with me when I travel. All right, so tonight's project, so saying hi to everyone joining in. I see Keita, Kath from Boston, Rebecca, so hey to everyone. And the project for tonight is for this Hexi Zip Pouch. And if you've never done any English paper piecing before, that's the method that I use to make this pouch. And the back of the pouch is just a piece of cork fabric with rainbow metallic, just so I didn't have to make so many hexagons. So when I first learned how to English paper piece, I was taught a method using obviously the fabric and a bit of cardstock to hold the fabric in place. And what was holding the cardstock in place was a needle and thread going through each of the corners, sort of a basting stitch. And that's how I learned how to English paper piece. And I felt really awkward doing it. I know a lot of people do use the cardstock and it works really well. But for me, I just couldn't get the hang of it. So for this method that I'm going to show you tonight, I used Fusible applique papers that are also water soluble and a little bit of a glue stick. So since I'm so used to using bag interfacings, many of which are fusible, these Fusible applique papers were right up my alley. And actually you can either choose to leave the papers in, and that's what I did for this pouch, or you can spritz them a bit or wash the project and the papers just dissolve because they're water soluble. So I'm really excited to share this project with you tonight. I made my pouch using foam interfacing because I like a really substantial feeling pouch, but you could also use fleece or batting. Those would work as well, and they'll definitely be a bit easier on your sewing machine. So tonight's video is 40 minutes long. We're going to stop the video about halfway through to answer your questions live. So if you have a question for me, either a sewing related question, bag related, or a sewing tool related question, leave your question in the comments, and about 20 minutes into the video, we'll pause the video, answer some questions live. Danny's going to join me on set, and then after we have a bit of a chat and Q&A, we'll continue with the second half of the video. So hope you enjoyed the video for the Hexi Zipper Pouch, and I'll see you in about 20 minutes. Hey bag ladies and bag dudes, I'm Sara Lawson from So Sweetness, and today I'm going to show you how to make this Hexi Zipper Pouch. If you've never done any English paper piecing before, hexagons are the perfect project to get started with. I like to prepare these little guys in advance of a trip or before my kids' swimming lesson because it's a great project for on the go. And I just use a bit of Fusible applique paper, and I love this paper by Hugs and Kisses. And the papers combined with a little bit of glue stick is all you need to prep these pieces, and then they're ready to sew. So grab your supplies and let's get started. Okay, before we start cutting out fabric and interfacing, you'll need to print off the PDF pattern, and this is the page that has the two templates that you'll need. So you want to always open up the pattern file using Adobe Reader. You don't want to open it up using a web browser. And Adobe Reader is a free program that you can download to your device if you don't already have it. And you always want to print out at actual size. So you don't want to scale or fit to page. It needs to be actual size, and there's two little test squares on the page, a 1 inch square and a 4 centimeter square. And you want to measure either of those squares to make sure that they measure exactly either 1 inch or the 4 centimeters. If they're measuring either slightly smaller or slightly larger, then that means that your templates did not print out correctly. Okay, so once we've got these printed out, we're going to cut to the outside of the black line. Okay, so this is the main panel. We'll need this to cut out from fabric and interfacing. And also this template right here is for cutting out all of your fabric hexagons. And again, we're going to be cutting to the outside of the black line. Okay, so for cutting out the hexagons, if you just want to have hexagons on the front of your pouch, you'll need to cut out 27 of these from fabric. And I've got 2 over here cut from fabric just so that you can see what they look like. And the very last page of the pattern template is meant to print out these smaller hexagons, and these are for attaching to the back of your fabric using the Fusible. So I've used Fusible Applique paper, and I just printed this file on the side of the paper that is not the adhesive. So this side right here is the shiny side. I'm not printing on this side, I'm just printing on the plain side without the adhesive. And you'll need to print out 2 of these pages to cover the 27 hexagons. And once you've cut those out, this is what they should look like. Okay, so let me show you how to attach the lining fabric to the interfacing. So here's, I've got one of my lining main panels, and I've also cut out Pellon Shapeflex interfacing. So one side of the Shapeflex feels bumpy to your fingers. That's the side with the adhesive that will go against the wrong side of the fabric. So I'm going to go ahead and flip this so that the design is face down, and the adhesive is going to go against the wrong side of the fabric. Okay, I'm going to take my iron. My iron is at the cotton setting, and I'm just going to glide the iron over all of the areas of the fabric for a few seconds. You don't want to just plonk your iron down. Just keep it moving so that you don't have a big iron imprint on your fabric when you're finished. And you always want to test to verify that your interfacing is properly attached before you stop ironing. And I usually recommend using a pressing cloth, but for these videos I don't, just so you can see what I'm doing. Okay, so I'm just going to take my fingernail and try to peel back a corner of the interfacing, and if I can't do it, then you've ironed it long enough, and if it's coming apart, then just iron it a little bit longer. So you should have 2 of these main panels attached to Shapeflex interfacing, and you should also have 2 main panels cut from foam interfacing. Also, if you prefer to use fleece or batting, that'll be okay too, but we're not attaching any fabric to these 2 pieces just yet. Okay, so let's move over and let me show you how to attach your hexagon fusible paper to the back of the fabric. Okay, so now we're going to iron these fusible applique papers to the wrong side of the fabric hexagons. Okay, so I'm just going to flip this so that it's face down, and do the best you can to center that paper on the wrong side of the fabric. No need to measure it, just eyeballing the center is fine. And I'm just going to take my iron and fuse that in place. Okay, and you'll repeat this same process with all 27 of your hexagons, and then I'm going to break out the glue stick and show you how to glue the corners down of the fabric. So I'm using this Fons & Porter washable glue stick. I like it because it's about a 1/2 inch in thickness, and it's great for gluing small areas. Also, the glue before it dries stays blue so you can see where you're gluing, and I also like using these refill packs once I run out of the glue that comes with the pen. Okay, so let me show you how to glue this. We're going to be gluing one side at a time. Try to leave yourself a little bit of room before you hit the black line so that you're not gluing all the way to the black line or higher up on the fabric. I'm just going to go ahead and take this and place some glue right across it, and I'm going to fold the fabric down so that it covers the edge of the paper, and then just take my iron and set the glue. Okay, I'm going to work my way around all of the edges. A nice thing about this fusible applique paper is that it's water soluble, so that means when your project is finished, You can either spritz the back of the hexagons using a spray bottle and the paper will disintegrate, or when you've completely finished your project, you can put it in the washing machine and that'll also disintegrate the papers, or you can just leave the papers in and it'll just provide a bit of extra stability to the project. So it's up to you. I've done all of those 3 methods before and I don't see a problem with either of them. So just your personal preference, what you want to do with the hexagons when your project is finished. Another thing that I wanted to note about this glue stick is I try to rotate ironing my project on my ironing board, because once a certain spot on the ironing board gets really hot, the glue stick sort of dries as soon as it hits the project. So if you're using a particular spot in your ironing board, you might want to just sort of rotate so you're getting a cool spot of the ironing board for each hexagon or something like that. So you'll repeat this same process for all 27 of the hexagons to attach them to the paper. Okay, so now it's time to start sewing these hexagons together. So when I first started English paper piecing years ago, the technique that I used was to use cardstock papers to attach the hexagons and then baste with thread the corners to hold the cardstock in place. And I had a hard time with that because my cardstock was shifting. That's why I like using these fusible papers, because as a bag maker, I'm used to using lots of interfacing that I fuse in place. And so these fusible applique papers sort of remind me of that whole process of attaching fabric to interfacing for bag making. So if you prefer to use the cardstock instead, that's completely fine with me. I'm going to use these tulip applique needles. These are number 10 big eye needles. And I'm using 60 weight polyester thread. These are by Superior Threads. If you have a different preference, that's also fine. And you'll want to, as close as possible, match your thread colors if you can to the project. So I'm just going to use sort of a silver colored thread because it kind of matches the light colors in this fabric. And you can either use an automatic needle threader or you can thread your needle by hand. So I often thread mine by hand. And there's a fantastic crafty class by Helen Stubbings. I highly recommend it. So if you're interested in this video today and you want to explore more with English paper piecing, check out the crafty class by Helen Stubbings. There's lots of great projects and information in the class, and I'll link to that in this video description. So I'm going to thread my needle. I just sort of like to pinch the thread between my fingers and pull it through. And I'm going to tie a knot at one end of my thread. I'm just looping that around the pointed end of the needle about 8 times and then pulling my knot down. So I've just got this tiny knot over here and I'm going to trim the little tail on that end of the thread. Okay, so let's get these sewn. I'm going to sew them right sides together, so that means I'm going to flip them down, and you want to always make sure that your corners are aligned. So if you have a little bit of extra fabric in the middle, that's fine because that'll go away as we sew the center of the piece. But I always like to use a wonder clip to hold the one end down, and as I get closer to the clip, I'll just remove it. Okay, so let me show you how to start off the hand sewing. So I'm going to start at this end. Again, I'm pinching so that the 2 corners are aligned. And I'm just going to come through the corners, just grabbing a small amount of the fabric. The more you grab, the more visible your stitches will be. So there I've just grabbed a small amount of the fabric, and I'm going to push the needle through until it hits the knot. Okay, so I'm going to come through that corner 2 more times, and I'm going to knot as I come through. Okay, so as I start to pull that thread through, I'm going to bring the needle through the loop, and that'll create a knot. So I'm going to do that one more time. And you always want to make your knots at the start and the end of a line of stitches, just so that things don't accidentally begin to unravel. Okay, one more knot. Okay, so time to start stitching. So I'm going to stitch about every a little bit more than 1/8 of an inch, and I'm just going to grab as little fabric as possible. So you don't want to just grab one thread of the fabric. You want to make sure you have at least a little bit of the fabric coming through the needle. Hopefully you can see my needle right there, and I'll flip it to the other side as well so you can see that. So I'm just grabbing a little chunk of the fabric in the needle. And practice makes perfect. If this is your first time doing some English paper piecing, just do the best you can and it'll get better. So about 1/4 of an inch, I'm going to come through the fabric again. And because this superior thread is a polyester thread, you can use cotton thread as well, but I feel like I'm a little bit heavy-handed when pulling my needle through. Okay. So I'm just going to keep coming from the back side and just pushing the needle through. And like I said, just grab the smallest amount of fabric in your needle possible. If you see just one little thread of the fabric in your needle, that's not enough, so just go back and try to grab a little bit more. Okay, I'm going to move my Wonder Clip out of the way and finish the rest of the line. And the nice thing about English paper piecing is, especially in the summer when my kids have swimming lessons, I prep a lot of these hexagon pieces with the interfacing and the glue stick. And then when we go to the pool, I have all my pieces ready for hand sewing. Okay, I'm coming through the very end of the corner, and just like I did at the beginning, I'm gonna come through the loop, and that'll tie one knot, and then I'm gonna do one more second knot. Okay, so that's the process for just attaching 2 hexagons along a straight edge like this. And I'm also going to show you how to attach them where the edge is sort of curved, like right here. So I'm going to show you how to attach that next. Okay, so now I'm going to show you how to hand sew the hexagons in an area where there's more than one side, like this. Okay, so I'm going to start by sewing this edge over here, and I've got my needle and thread already knotted. So I'm going to start by sewing this edge right here, right sides together, and again I'm going to put my Wonder Clip on the far side. Okay, so you're going to repeat the same process for the remaining 3 edges of the hexagon. So for this next edge right here, I'm just going to fold the purple rabbit fabric and sew this edge, and then I'll do this edge right here, and then finally I'll finish with the 3rd edge right here. Okay, so you'll want to sew enough hexagons together so that you can completely cover the foam main panels. So when I finish doing that, I'm just going to go ahead and give it a press with my iron to make everything flat. And you might want to consider pausing just so you can see the layout of how I've laid mine out. I actually originally thought that I'd only need 27 hexagons, but when I finished my piece and I laid it on top of the foam main panel, I found that I needed to add 1 more. So I added this 1 more over here. So again, a friendly reminder, you can sew these hexagons together in whichever manner that you prefer. If you prefer to sew them in rows first and then attach the rows like this, you can do that. I just sort of added 1 at a time, so I didn't have a specific method for adding them. I would just add however I wanted to, and it doesn't matter as long as you're always stitching through twice on each corner to sew the knot, and then same thing when you reach the other corner. The knots are really important just so your stitching does not come undone. But this is what it should look like when you have all of the pieces assembled. So I'm going to go ahead and pull out that foam main panel piece, and I'm going to lay my completed hexagons on top. I'm just going to give it 1 more press. And then I'm actually going to keep my fingers on both the layers and flip to the wrong side. So what I'm going to do is take some Wonder Clips, and you can use some pins also if you prefer. I'm just going to place some Wonder Clips around the perimeter. What I'm going to do is take this over to the sewing machine, and I'm going to sew from the wrong side of the foam, and I'm going to sew using an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance around the entire outer edge to secure the hexagons to the foam, and then I can come back and trim any excess hexagons that are sticking out past the foam. Okay, so I have my stitch length set to 4 millimeters because we're just basting this. Hey, so hope you enjoyed the first half of the video for the Hexagon zipper pouch. So my husband Danny's joining me here.
Hey guys, hello. Bag dudes, bag ladies.
So we're going to get to some of your questions live. Why don't we kick off the questions first thing? Is that all right?
Sure, sounds cool.
We're having a little bit of a technical issue with putting some of the questions on the screen. So the YouTube ones are going to post to the screen as we normally do. Any of the Facebook questions, Danny's going to read them out loud because we're having problems posting those on the screen. So he's going to read those out loud and I'll just answer them.
Why don't you talk about the thread, because they were asking about that.
Oh, okay. We saw some questions about the thread. Here, scoot over a little bit. Thanks. The thread that I was using for that project. This is Superior. I think this is called the Super Bob. So it comes with all these bobbins already. This is 60 weight Superior thread. It's polyester thread. I feel like I'm a little bit heavy-handed when I do English paper piecing, so I like polyester because it doesn't snap. Like I don't think I could break this thread with my hands if I tried my hardest. But some people prefer cotton, and 100% cotton is perfectly okay too. But this is the product that I used. It was 60 weight Superior polyester thread. Okay, so Claudette had a question. Hi, Sarah. When you are sewing, is the paper being caught in your needle also? Generally, you're trying to hit like right through the fabric, just above the paper. But if you happen to catch some paper, I'm honestly not sure if I usually do. I don't think I usually am grabbing the paper, but if you are, it's fine because the papers are water soluble. They'll just wash away. Or if you want to spritz them, like I said during the video, with a spray bottle, then the papers will dissolve also. Okay.
Someone had a question about the cork, if it can be used in the hexagons.
That's a good question. I've not personally tried it yet to use cork fabric to sew in the same manner that I did in the video. It would certainly work if you cut it raw and just laid out all the hexagons and then maybe machine sewed through all the edges of each one. I'll have to try that and see if it works with the same method for English paper piecing.
Chelsea said she'll be in Chicago at YardCon in April, What fabric shop should she hit up? Bonus if there's any yarn there.
Do you know what YardCon is?
I don't.
Oh, that's interesting. So actually in Chicago, there is Second City Quilting, which is the shop that I was in today. That's kind of near the lake, and right around the corner from that shop is Oak Fabrics. All of the rest of the shops that I like to visit are out in the suburbs. Quilter's Destination is a good one. Also Quilter's Quest and Thimbles, but those are further out in the suburbs. Elizabeth wants to know, can you sew this project with a machine? You sure can. I've actually done it with machine, just sewing the hexagons instead of fusing them to the papers and turning them and using the glue stick. I actually just cut the hexagons raw, and I actually marked my machine bed with some washi tape, and I would start and stop 1/4 of an inch from each end to leave the ends open so that I could fit all the hexagons in there. It's been several years since I've done it, but maybe I'll do a project like this with hexagons machine sewn. That would be really cool, I think.
Kathy wanted to know, did you purchase the original Juki machine oil, or what do you use for your machine?
That's a good question. So the bottle of oil that came with my machine lasted a really long time, but I purchased some replacement oil. Let me see if I can grab it. I think it's right over underneath all my envelopes over here. No, sorry, I don't see it. My desk is a mess, but I purchased some machine oil. Let me investigate. I know I bought it on Amazon. I'll get you the link after the chat.
Lauren wants to know, where did you purchase the glue pen and fusible applique paper?
Good question. So this is the Fons and Porter. Let me hold it the right direction. This is the Fons and Porter glue pen. They also make refills. This is what the refill, this is about the length of the refill stick, and this is what the fusible applique papers look like. It comes in a 20 pack, and they fit in my printer, so I just printed them really quickly and easily. The links to these products are in the description, as well as the tulip needles that I use, so those links are all there. Just check the link in the description, and all the products are listed over there.
How do you prevent cork from wearing on corners of bags, from Leah?
That's a good question. So the cork is treated by the manufacturer with a form of Scotch Guard and also UV protectant. I've actually not seen any of my bags wear down in the corners, but I don't use them super heavily. I use a bag for maybe 4 or 5 months, and then I switch out to another bag just because I have so many. But the cork is treated with a form of Scotch Guard.
You have a question?
Terry wants to know, do you plan on quilting more bags? I have quilted most of your patterns, and I love the look. So do you want to grab that yellow pouch that we filmed last week? I don't quilt a lot
I personally love quilting of any bags, to be honest.
Yeah, so this is one I made last week, and I did machine quilt this with a simple straight line quilting. I don't all the time. I would say I probably quilt a bag maybe 5% of the time. I don't know why. I guess just it takes a bit of time. Like this took me, you know, with the side panel, a little bit of time. I don't know. I guess I just like the look without it quilted, but I know everyone has their own preference. Linda wants to know, can you give some history on paper piecing? I'm not familiar with what is the purpose of the paper. So the paper is meant to give the shape to the fabric. So instead of just blindly folding the fabric to try to form a hexagon, the paper gives a precise shape to the fabric. And actually you need these to be all the same size, because then if they weren't the same size when you went to go sew them all together, they wouldn't fit nicely. Like you'd have gaps, or you just couldn't get them to fit like a puzzle piece like shown over here. So that's what the paper does. It gives the form to the fabric, and hexagons are probably one of the most basic shapes, but there's lots of other shapes that you can use for English paper piecing as well.
Sarah, would you mind doing a video on expansion zippers?
Expansion zippers.
And that's from Pat.
Does that mean like on a side panel, you unzip the zipper and like the bottom of the bag gets bigger? I'm not sure if that's what you meant, but
Maybe
if
like
it is,
luggage or something, you know, you unzip them and then it pops open.
Okay, yeah, that's pretty much the same thing I just said. That's a good idea. I'll add it to my list. Thank you.
You mentioned your needle.
Anita, do you use a teeny tiny needle? So the needle is, I think I put it back in my case. It was the Tulip number 10 Big Eye needle. And the Tulip needles come in a little vial. So I think there's 6 in the vial. And it has a little cork topper. So the needles are all in here. I've had these for many years, and that's all I have to say about the needles, I think. Do you have to use fabric glue, or can you use a standard glue stick? Yeah, you can certainly use a standard glue stick as long as it's a washable glue stick. Good question.
Melissa, it's actually, it just moved. Mac wants to know, can you use other shapes for paper piecing?
Yeah, so maybe when Danny's showing his pick of the week, I can run upstairs real quick and grab some of my other English paper piecing that I'm working on for a quilt, because it has different shapes in it. I'll run up there when he's showing the pick of the week. Actually, you want to do that now, or do you have another question queued up?
Real quick, a couple people mentioned they wanted to know about the Cork Club for next month. They could see the colors and if you have the project available to show.
Oh, that's in the basement. Can you talk for a long time about your pick of the week? Do you think you have...
I've been playing so many video games this week. No. I won't talk about them.
Okay, so while he's showing his pick of the week, I'm going to run upstairs, grab my English paper piecing, run to the basement. I'll grab the Cork Club if I could hustle, and you just keep talking, okay? So I'll be right back, everybody.
All right, here's the pick of the week. Let me take this off real quick. And this is from Melissa, and I think she did an awesome job with an airplane bag. As you know, I love Doctor Who sci-fi, and it just looks amazing to me. I love the colors. I could totally see we're traveling. I have a bag like that. I'd be proud to walk around, carry it around and show it. But what I would like to talk about, I noticed a lot of people from, I believe it was Sunday's or Tuesday's show last week about picture taking. A lot of people would like some helpful tips and hints, what you can do to improve your videos. I think that I will be working on a video to show, depending on if you have a DSLR camera, if you just have a camera on your cell phone, I'm going to shoot a couple different takes of what you can do to improve your photography. And it's going to be with multiple phones, and I'll have pictures to help show the difference why you want to do it like this versus you want to do it like that. And I think it helps some of you guys with your pictures, because you guys are making, I really believe the products you guys are making, when I see in the private group, are just amazing bags between the colors, just everything. I love the fabric choices, how you guys do some hacks on there. You do a really amazing job, and the pictures you take are great too. I'm not trying to say, hey, your pictures can be so much better, but with just a little bit of help, I think they can go from great to amazing, because your bag should show how well and how hard you worked on it. And I think you guys can do it just 5 minutes watching a video. Here, try like this, and you'll see the difference between the two takes. And I see a lot of ladies are using the backdrops for their photos as well, which is great as well if you don't have somewhere to take a picture of something. Oh, she's back. Luckily, we have a small house.
Okay, so maybe I'll talk about the English paper piecing first. Let me throw this over here. So this is from a book called The New Hexagon. There's a free quilt along on Facebook called The New Hexagon Millefiori quilt. So as you can see, these are a lot of different shapes. There's some hexagons in there, but there's also diamonds. What else is in here?
Triangles?
I'm not sure what these are. Like jewel shaped.
Half
There's
hexagons.
I'm not good with my shapes over here.
Rhombuses.
Anyway, rhombuses, okay.
Parallelograms.
Good. All right, I got two more to show up. To hold up. So even though there's these rhombuses over here, like if you fussy cut your fabric really carefully, you can make it look like a continuous, like this is 6 pieces of fabric, but the flowers kind of make a continuous circle around the center hexagon. So I have a beach bag video planned for maybe a month or two, and I'm going to show you how to fussy cut your pieces. I use quilter's template plastic. So like all of these chipmunks, this is actually 2 pieces of fabric. I fussy cut them, but all the pieces around the quilt look the same. So I spent a lot of time fussy cutting, but I was pretty happy with how it turned out. And that's the last one. So as you can see, lots of different shapes for English paper piecing, not just hexagons. And I think I spent one whole summer working on just those 3 pieces. So this summer, hoping to get at least 3 more done. What else did the Cork Club. So I have, I think, 9 of the 10 pieces, because we're still cutting the 10th one. But Cork Club we're sending out by the end of this week. So we've got black with gold, metallic gold, fuchsia, charcoal, natural fennel, sorry. White cork, jeans blue, teal. This is a print called Squares on Point, and this is brown. So, and then there's one more. So that's what the packet is for month 2 of Cork Club, and we'll be posting the video project for Cork Club to the YouTube channel on April 1st, which is Easter. So we'll actually be showing that video live for the first time on Social Sunday this Sunday. I know it's Easter, so if you're busy celebrating, you can always watch the broadcast after we've gone off from being live. Okay. What were you talking about when I was gone?
That we're gonna. Well, I'm gonna make a video about photography, about getting better shots with some helpful.
I like
tips.
how you changed that from we're and then you corrected yourself and you're like I'm.
Well, I think you talked to me about like Danny. I think you should do this one, saying, "Hey, I'm not gonna help you." So I'll be doing it probably with one of my children.
Don't you need my help? Don't you need someone to hold the camera?
My daughter, she loves taking pictures, unlike my wife. So I'd rather work with someone who's happy about what they're doing versus someone like, "Are we done yet? Are we done?" Mm-hmm. It's funny when we take pictures, even from last year. I like to take 20 pictures of one product, different angles, and see what's the best. Sarah's like, one picture. All right, we're done. Then we got to go back to the look over here, and I'm like, that picture's not the greatest. And she's like, we'll just go with it. I'm like, no, Sarah and I are different in that. I'm more of a perfectionist, and she's okay with being, it's good, but I like, man, it could be a little better, and just a little bit better. And maybe I'm too much of a perfectionist in that aspect. Sarah did go to a new class this week. Yesterday. Where did you go?
Oh, I forgot about that.
To Roomba, as I call it.
Zumba. It was my first time going, and I think I didn't realize it was an hour. I think I thought it was going to be 30 minutes, and the room was a little warm to begin with, and I wasn't prepared for that. And if you're not familiar with Zumba, it's a lot of high-paced, choreographed dances. And since I was new, everyone else knew the dances, and I was in the back of the room, like, trying to keep up. I went with my friend Dorota, and I just felt a little overwhelmed, and I felt really discouraged with myself. But then I told myself, it's your first time doing this. You don't know the dances, and even though everyone else does, you're doing the best you can. So I told myself not to be so hard on myself, and also, who cares what I look like while I'm doing these dances? Because
I was recording outside. She didn't know.
No, that'll
be next week.
The whole point of going to Zumba is to be more fit and to be healthier.
Break a sweat,
and
yeah.
Who cares what I look like when I'm doing these dances? Mm-hmm. I'm not looking at anybody else to see who's better than me. It doesn't matter. So the whole point is to be more fit, because both of us, we do a lot of sitting at the computer.
Way too much.
Working on editing videos or patterns, and I know it's winter and we have a little bit of an excuse, but I'd like to be healthy and not have problems. Our bedrooms are upstairs. When I go to the top of the stairs or bring laundry upstairs, I'm out of breath, and that's not right.
Right now.
Yeah, like right now, because I had to run upstairs and run downstairs. So
I noticed it as well, because the lady she went with, her husband called me up right before like an hour before. He's like, "Danny, I just bought a couch. Can you help me with it?" And so I came over with my other friend, and me and him, not the guy, but my other friend, helped carry it inside of his house. And I was so out of shape from doing this. And I'm like, man, I really need to start moving around more, because like we're sitting behind the computers, we're doing stuff that's really not physically intensive. And now that we do something that normally we wouldn't have a problem with, it's like, man, you can tell the difference, and we need to, step up with getting back in shape and stuff.
We should go before we start work in the morning. After you print the orders, we should go for a walk just around the block.
That's a good start.
That's a good start, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. Does anybody else do anything like that? Walking around the block, maybe once or twice a day. We don't have a dog, so we don't have an excuse for walking a dog, but...
And that is the Melissa who made that bag. Great job with it. Really nice work.
I missed it, but I did see the picture before when we were getting ready for the live chat.
And as always, are you a bag lady or bag dude? Let's see it in the comments. It's awesome, you guys. Pretty soon we'll have some shirts. I know it. Once we get that embroidery machine in the next year or two, we're going to put some work on that thing. I'll tell you what. Go ahead. And
besides just commenting bag lady or bag dude in the comments, I love the community that I feel is growing from the live chats, because we see people jumping on the chats maybe 10 minutes early and saying hello to each other as if they're familiar from seeing people from previous chats. So that's really cool, and that definitely extends to the Facebook group. So if you're not already a member, I hope you'll join our Facebook group. The link's in the description as well. It's a great community.
You get a lot of support
helpful.
from people. You know,
Yeah.
sometimes like I think people are too hard on themselves. You look at their pictures, and the bags look great, and like, oh man, this zipper really did me wrong. You know, I don't like the way it looks. And you post a picture, and like 10 people are like, wow, that bag looks nice. And I totally agree with them. And I am very critical. And you can ask Sara. I would say, Sara, we got to shoot that again. You went sideways when it should have went straight. Or, you know, hey, it's like under a microscope, and I am that microscope, as I am a perfectionist.
When I quilted this bag, so I quilted half at a time, so I drew the diagonal lines 1 inch apart. After I had drawn the lines, he made me stop and he said, those are not correct, those are off. And I was like, what do you mean? I measured, you saw me measure them on camera. And he's
But the
like,
distance was off.
He's like, look at this line and this line. They're not, 3 inches apart or whatever.
Yep.
And I get so mad when he makes me stop for stuff like that, because I'm like, are you the quilt police or what
That's
are
what she
you?
called me. That's the truth.
No.
Yeah, it's you know what? Because I'm literally staring at it in such a it's a microscope, because my screen is large. It's zoomed in. I'm like, Sara, to me it looks a little off, because obviously if you're looking at a 40-inch screen, it looks huge, and that's when sometimes we're sewing. We're gonna start zooming in more in some of our shots, because if you have a tablet or a smaller device at your phone, you may not see it as easily as we can on a large screen. So I think we're gonna get another camera and start doing some more side angle shots that will give you a better view of a tighter shot, something you may need to see a fine detail. Like if Sara's making a mistake, I'll make sure I throw a different clip in there. But no, but in general, I think it's going to help improve the video quality and stuff like that.
I was starting to get mad, and then you said you were starting to make sense, like buying the additional camera for extra shots. I was like, all right, can't get too mad at him, but.
Oh, speaking of getting mad, Sara, I swear she goes in these fits of anger. Something just sets her off, and I'm like, and when she gets mad, I like to press her button more to get her more mad. Then I think she just boils over and then calms back down, because she mentioned something like, oh, we're gonna do this at 1 o'clock. I'm like, no, I'm busy at 1 o'clock. She's like, no, I already made plans. We're doing this. I'm like, Sara, I'm clearly busy. I have YouTube open. I'm watching videos. And she just gets like, what? Like, relax, take it easy. But also, don't forget to share. By sharing, you help us get out to other people. It grows the community even bigger. It really helps a ton by sharing. We know it's more than comments, liking. Sharing is our greatest tool to get out and, just keep growing. The more we grow, the more we can offer you guys with different stuff. And we really appreciate as much you guys do. You do share a ton. Yeah. And I don't want to say like you're lacking that, because you do a great job, and I really appreciate it.
But the sharing's only on Facebook, right? So
yeah. So if you're on YouTube, you want to like it and put a comment down. That's another way to grow YouTube.
Okay. Were there any other burning questions, or should we get to the other half of the video?
There's a great comment. Good job. Run 4 miles the other day with the dog. I wish I could run for 4 miles. We'll start with walking 4 blocks, I think. There's just, comments, a lot of good stuff like that.
Okay, so let's leave it at that for the answering of the questions. If you have a question that I didn't answer, you can always ask either in the Facebook group or send me an email. My email is Sara@sewsweetness.com, and that's Sara with no H. So either way, if you need to get in contact with me, if it's a very urgent question, email is the best way, because I always answer emails. Okay, so let's get to the second half of the video. We've got about 20 more minutes left, and I'm going to finish up showing you how to make this Hexi Zipper Pouch. So hope you enjoy the second half of the video, and we'll see you on Easter Sunday at 7 p.m. Central Time as usual. We're going to be showing the Cork Club project. Can I tell them what the project is?
Sure, and I might make a special appearance on the Sunday show, which is the first time ever, so be prepared. We'll see.
Because?
We'll
okay,
see.
So Sunday's project for Cork Club is a luggage tag, but it's got several components. It's not just, one piece of cork. Yeah, that's all I can say.
Right?
We'll see you on Sunday, and enjoy the rest of the video.
See you guys later.
Fabric to the foam. Okay, so now we're going to flip to the wrong side of the foam and just trim any overhang of the hexagons. Okay, so if you are going to have hexagons on both the front and the back of the pouch, you'll repeat this same process to attach more hexagons to the second foam main panel. I decided, so I wouldn't have to make so many hexagons, to have a solid fabric on my second foam main panel. So I repeated this process with basting this piece of, I decided to go with some natural cork with rainbow metallics sort of to match my hexagons. And so I attached the foam interfacing to the cork fabric in the same method that I just did, sewing around the perimeter using an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance with a lengthened stitch length of 4 millimeters. Okay, so now the exterior pieces are prepared. It's now time to sew the zipper in place. So first we need to trim the zipper to exactly 7 inches. I always like to measure in the center of the zipper, and the reason for that is I like to eliminate this metal zipper stop because that'll break a needle. And I also like to eliminate the front of the zipper because where the zipper teeth end, that sort of creates sort of a weird gap over there. So I'm going to take my ruler and I'm going to measure right in the middle of the zipper. Okay, and we need to measure 7 inches because that's what we'll be trimming the zipper to. So I'm going to make a marking on this end, and then where there's 7 inches, right over here as well. And I just happen to be using a really long zipper just because I was looking for a certain color and this is what I had in my stash. Okay, so this is 7 inches exactly. Yes. I'm going to create new bar tacks to create a new zipper stop. So I'm going to sew an 1/8 of an inch to the inside of the markings that I made. I'm going to sew back and forth a few times. If you're using a zipper with metal teeth, you may consider either hand cranking back and forth or removing a few of the metal zipper teeth. And then I'm going to do the same thing for this end, except I need to make sure that zipper head is pulled in the middle of the 2 markings that I made. And when I go to sew this one, I'm going to use my fingers to pinch the zipper tape together. Same thing, I'm going to sew back and forth a few times to create a new zipper stop. Okay, so I turned my stitch length back to 2.5 millimeters because that's my usual. And then cut exactly on the lines that you drew. And then after cutting, that zipper should measure exactly 7 inches. Okay, now we're going to pull out the 2 zipper tabs. I'm going to flip to the wrong side of the fabric and we're going to press those wrong sides together in half so that both of the short ends meet. Okay, we're going to open the fabrics out and I'm going to press this short end in toward the center crease. And then same thing with the other short end. Again, in toward the center crease. And then I'm going to repress like that. Okay, now I'm going to take the zipper and I'm going to slide one end of the zipper inside the metal zipper tab, and it's going to hit that center crease over there and the zipper tape is going to be centered. So I'm going to refold that zipper tab and just place a wonder clip on either side, and same thing for this end as well. Again, that end of the zipper will hit that center crease, and then I'll refold. So I'm going to take this over to the sewing machine, and I'm going to sew on the fabric 1/8 of an inch away from the edge of the fabric to secure the zipper tab, and same thing on the opposite end as well. Okay, we're also going to trim the fabric so that it's even with the zipper tape. And same thing on the other side as well. Okay, so now we're going to attach the zipper to one of the main panels, and it doesn't matter which one you sew first. I'm going to flip the zipper so that it's face down. And the zipper needs to be centered, so you should see equal amounts of the fabric extending from either end. Okay, I'm going to take this over to the sewing machine, put the zipper foot on your machine, and we're going to sew from the tab to the other tab using 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. Okay, so again, that zipper foot's on my machine, and going forward, we're going to backstitch all of our seams at start and stop. Okay, as I approach that zipper head, I'm going to stop with the needle down, lift the presser foot up, and zip that zipper head out of the way, and then I can continue sewing. Okay, now we're going to add one of the lining main panels. So I'm going to flip this lining piece so that it's right sides together with the hexagons. So that means that zipper will be sandwiched in between. And I'm going to pin that top edge in place. Okay, so this time I'm actually going to be sewing from the wrong side of the exterior, because I can see my stitches from when I stitch the zipper to the exterior fabric. So basically we're going to be sewing from one tab to the other. If for some reason you can't see your stitches, we're going to be using 1/4 of an inch seam allowance, and just remember you're not sewing all the way to the end. You're only sewing from one tab to the other. Okay, I feel that zipper head coming up, so again, I'm going to stop with the needle down, lift the presser foot, and unzip the zipper. Okay, I'm going to press the fabrics so that they're wrong sides together. Okay, and then I'm going to top stitch 1/8 of an inch away from the edge of the fabric, just from one tab to the other tab. And for any top stitching, I always like to swap out my zipper foot for my regular sewing machine foot, because it gives me a little bit of extra leverage for the top stitching. Okay, for the top stitching, I also lengthened my stitch length to 3 millimeters. Okay, now we're going to add the second exterior main panel. So I'm going to have that piece right side facing up, and I'm going to flip the zipper again so that it's face down. And the zipper should be centered on that exterior main panel. So you should see equal amounts of the fabric showing on either side. Okay, again, I'm going to take this over to the sewing machine, and we're going to sew the pinned edge using 1/4 of an inch seam allowance with the zipper foot back on the machine. Oops, you know what? I forgot to change back to my regular stitch length. If you forgot like I did, switch it back to 2.5 millimeters. Okay, now we're going to add the final lining main panel. So I'm going to flip it so that the fabric's face down. You want to see the wrong side of the zipper, and I'm going to pin it to that top edge. The zipper will be sandwiched in between. Okay, again, I'm going to flip to the wrong side of the foam piece, and I'm going to sew on top of my previous stitches. So I'm going to start sewing here where the tab starts and stop sewing over here. Again, with the zipper foot, it's a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Okay, we're going to press those last 2 main panels so that they're wrong sides together. And you can go ahead and remove that zipper foot from your machine. We won't be needing it anymore. And just like before, we're going to top stitch from the tab to the tab using an 1/8 of an inch seam, and I'm going to lengthen my stitch length to 3 millimeters. Okay, so make sure the zipper's unzipped, and I'm going to bring both of the exterior fabrics so that they're right sides together, and I'm going to pin those in place. So the ends where we left unsewn, those are going to be left folded down on either end, and make sure that the lining fabric is pushed out of the way. Okay, we're going to take this over to the sewing machine, and we're going to sew the pinned edge using a 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. So basically the sides and the bottom are going to be sewn, and again, make sure that the lining fabric is pushed out of the way. Okay, I have my stitch length turned back to my usual, which is 2.5 millimeters. Okay, we're going to repeat the same process for the lining, except we need to leave an opening for turning right side out. You may prefer to leave the opening on the side. I'm going to leave my opening right over here, and it's about 4 inches. Okay, so I'm going to pin the same way that I did with the exterior, have the top end of the lining sort of folded down. And same thing as with the exterior, while we're sewing, we're not going to sew through the zipper tab, we're just sewing right to the side of it. Okay, and again, we're not sewing through any exterior fabric. Make sure that exterior is pushed out of the way. Okay, again, we're going to use a 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. Okay, so this time I'm going to sew from the opening toward the corner, and then same thing, come back the other side of the opening toward the corner. I just found for the lining I had an easier time sewing those top corners if I sewed it this way. Okay, so anywhere where there's a curved edge, I'm going to take my scissors and cut little V's about halfway into the seam allowance, and the V's help the fabric turn nice and neat when pressing. So the nice thing about this pouch is that you can use a variety of different interfacings. If your machine doesn't handle thick layers well, you might consider using either batting or fusible fleece. And not necessary to use foam because this is a flat project. You don't need the foam for the added structure, so a thinner interfacing is certainly perfectly fine to use. Okay, I'm going to do the same thing with the lining. Okay, now it's time to pull everything out through the opening in the lining. Okay, so I'm just going to use a turning tool. I'm using this precision turning tool to poke out the corners so that my zipper ends look really nice. And I noticed when I was making this smaller project that the cork and the foam made everything really thick. So if you're using cork, you might want to consider skipping the foam just so you have a bit of an easier time. All right, so to close the opening, you can either close the opening by hand or by machine. So I'm going to press this opening toward the wrong side by about 1/4 inch. Same thing on the other side. And then I'm going to put some wonder clips on these edges to hold them together. So you can either machine stitch the opening using 1/8 inch seam allowance, just where the opening is, or since you've had some practice with the hand sewing, you can close this opening by hand using a slip stitch. It's up to you. Either method will work for finishing that opening. Thanks so much for sewing along with me. I can't wait to see your finished pouch. Be sure to join my Facebook group and share a photograph of your finished project there. And remember, if I can do it, so can you.